So as I said, we're going to be talking about new mercy. Mercy in our context as a church, what we say about mercy, obviously we talk about it a lot since, we're Mercy City. That's the name of the church, in case you didn't know where you were this morning. We talk about mercy being not getting what you deserve, right? Like mercy is not getting what we deserve, but it's receiving the price that was paid for us through Jesus. That's kind of our motto. That's what we say. And that word mercy literally means compassion or forbearance. Compassion or forbearance. Any of us who have student loans understand what forbearance means, and we appreciate forbearance, don't we? And we are sad when we get the email that says your forbearance period is over, right? I just got one of those not too long ago. Yes, I didn't do school the normal way. I graduated when I was 35, so I'm still have the student loans. 43, it's fine, probably till I die. Okay. So it's okay though. Praises. All right. So we understand what forbearance means. It means refraining from enforcing debt. Okay. So like mercy is refraining from enforcing debt. Debt is something that we owe, right? Like everybody understands that we owe debt. In our Christian world, we know because Romans 6:23 says that the wages of sin is death. Our debt for our sin should be death. But instead, we get to receive the gift of God, which is eternal life. That's Romans 6:23. And we begin to understand that the mercy that God extends to us offers us new life. God extends us mercy. He covers our sin. He paid our debt. And now we get to respond to mercy. Mercy has a response. How we respond determines where we're aligned. It determines the seeds that we sow, as we talked about last week. Either we can respond by abusing mercy and continuing on in our own way. There's a verse in the Bible, there's a passage where Jesus talks about the rich ruler. I'm going to butcher this because I'm just doing this off the cuff. But he comes and there's a guy that owes a big debt, and the king is like, you know what, your debt is forgiven. Be blessed, and then he goes out and he requires a smaller debt paid to him, and he doesn't respond well to mercy. He instead goes and does the opposite of what he just received. That's not the great response. That's the abuse of mercy. That's the way that we don't receive God's mercy well. We continue doing our own thing, our own way, what we think is right, choosing things by our preference. Or we choose to act in gratitude for the price that was paid to cover our sin. Is anybody doing the soap guide with us? So we're in 4 people. Come on, guys. Okay, if you haven't started yet, jump in. I feel bad, though, because we're in Leviticus now. So... yeah. So like yesterday when we were reading Leviticus, it was all of the sacrifices that were required to cover your sin. There was a requirement to cover your debt. There was something that you had to do in the Old Testament before Jesus came to pay for your sin. It was bulls and goats and blood and sacrifices and sprinkling blood. It was crazy. I'm so thankful for what Jesus did because he covered that debt. There is something that was paid for your sin, so you don't have to carry it and you don't have to pay for it. And so we can choose to act in gratitude, and we can respond by aligning our lives to God's plan. That's how we respond. We say, okay, God, my response of gratitude is that I'm going to get in alignment with you, with your word, with your ways. I submit to your authority. That's what we're saying. When we choose to operate in alignment, his word becomes our guide. We don't do our own thing anymore. We align to his way and we get into alignment with him. Now, maybe you're new or maybe you're just stubborn. Anyone? Or both? Someone said yes. Maybe you're new and stubborn. Good luck. Maybe you're new, maybe you're stubborn, maybe you're just working it out like the rest of us. And this feels like, wait a minute, this sounds a little bit more than what I bargained for. When I said yes to Jesus, I didn't understand that I was going to have to give up my own way and follow him. Like I didn't understand that that's what was going to be required. And the more you get into it, the longer you serve God, you're going to realize, oh, there's more to give up. Oh, there's more ways that I have been doing my own thing than I even thought was real. I've been serving Jesus for over 25 years, and I'm like, more? we're just going to continue on. I found myself regularly saying, just come back, Jesus. Anytime you want, I'm ready. I'm just continuing to submit myself. I'm continuing to lay down my life, and there's always more of it. And the time we get into it, the more and more we understand mercy, the more we receive, we begin to understand that his way is better, that his plans are better, and it becomes a joy to surrender. I can honestly say, when God points something out in my life now, I'm thankful that he told me. Because I don't want to do it my own way. I want to do it his way. I don't want to make my own decisions. I want his decisions to be my decisions. And maybe you're not there yet, but I want to encourage you to lean in today, because I think what we're talking about can really help you understand how to live for Jesus in a real way. We get saved, but then it's like, now what? So today I want to focus on the now what part, okay? And you always have a choice. What am I going to receive? What am I going to take? But I want to give you something that you can take and you can leave here, and it can change something for you. Something can be different today because of what you received this morning. Does that sound good? Okay, so last week we talked specifically about fruitfulness. Pastor Matt had fruit up here, and he was slinging seeds around and all sorts of stuff. Like he talked about how we examine the fruit in our life and how we sow good seed in good soil, okay? Remember, this stuck with me, what he said last week. He said, everything is a seed. Everything is a seed. Now that's kind of, I say stuck with me, it sort of haunted me all week. I'm like, that was a seed. That was a seed. Okay, so we have to remember that. But that's not just like a great thing that Pastor Matt said. It's actually the Bible, right? Like Galatians 6:7 says, do not be deceived. God cannot be mocked. A man reaps what he sows. Okay? A man reaps what he sows. The hardest part about sowing seeds is not getting impatient in the middle. I sowed the seed. Where's the harvest? Right? I like to call this the messy middle. The messy middle is the space between sowing and reaping. It's the space between really hearing from God, operating in obedience, and then seeing anything come to pass, right? The messy middle. Very rarely is this space fast, comfortable, or easy. Don't you feel encouraged? Very rarely, right? But it is in the messy middle that God is developing you, developing your character to receive the harvest that he has for us. I'm so thankful that God didn't give me everything all at once. I was talking to somebody recently about the church and just how it's grown. We've had consistent growth since day one. We've been kind of on like a incline, right? Like a nice pace. And then we'll level for a little bit so we get our bearings, and then we grow, and then we level. And I said, I'm so thankful for that, because if God had given us this 9 years ago, it would have been a mess. We weren't ready to handle it. As a church, we weren't ready to handle it. Dawes wasn't ready to handle it. Like Dawes parking lot wasn't ready to handle it. Like there would have been, we needed the messy middle to put in structure. When you get married, you think, oh, our wedding is amazing. And then you have to be married. And then you're like, I thought we were going to be happy. Well, there's a messy middle before that happens. I'm so thankful, though, for that time, for us 23 years of putting in structure and learning and growing together. Marriage is work, the promise is made and it is amazing and it's the wedding and then you're married. And it's hard work, right? And it's the best work. The messy middle is where we do the best work. It's where we grow. It's where we develop. It's where God changes us and establishes us to make us who he wants to be. I'm so thankful that I'm not the same person I was when I met Jesus when I was 18. I was a hot mess when I was 18. If I was still acting the way that I was when I was 18, I would not like myself, and none of you would like me either. And I wouldn't be here on this stage. Right? I didn't have what it took. But guess what I did when I was 18? God spoke to me about this. I wasn't ready for this when I was 18. I needed the messy middle. I had to sow some seed. I had to put myself out there. I had to see if I could handle what God wanted to give us. I had to see if I had the character to be the person that God had called me to be. Unfortunately, what happens in the middle a lot of times is that people get impatient with God. They get impatient and we rush into decisions and situations that he did not plan, that were not his path. We get impatient and we do our own thing. I've done it, you've done it, we've all done it, okay? Don't point fingers unless it's at yourself, okay? Because we've all been there, we've all done that. We choose to go our own way, we choose to make our own plans because we are sick and tired of waiting on God. We think God forgot, we think that it wasn't real, we think that I don't even know what's happening. We get impatient, we give up, and unfortunately sometimes we turn away from God altogether because we get impatient. Each of these options gets us out of alignment with God. It moves us from being on God's path. So Pastor Matt taught a message a couple weeks ago, or it was last year sometime, but it's called Follow the Leader. It was a really great message. I really loved it. But when we're on God's path, when we're in alignment with God, all it takes is one decision our own way. And all of a sudden then, maybe we're parallel for a little bit, but then the road starts to veer. And we get further and further away from the path that God had for us. Now, the good news is we can always get right back on it. Like, no matter how far you are, God can get us back to where we are. But in the meantime, there are seeds that are sown. Wherever we're in alignment is where we're sowing seed. And if we're not in alignment with what God has for us, our seed is sown in vain. It's not sown in good soil. One of the hardest things to do as a believer is what Psalm 27:14 encourages us to do. Wait for the Lord. And I think it's interesting that then the psalmist goes on to say, be strong and take heart and wait for the Lord. It's not just waiting and it's not easy. How do I know that? Because we have to be strong. If it were easy, we could be weak. We could be passive. We could have fun and be at peace when we're waiting, right? Waiting is hard. I hate waiting. I'm one of the most impatient people. Do you guys ever get mad at inanimate objects? Like the worst? Hangers. I hate hangers with my whole heart. Maybe I have too many things in my closet, but like when you're trying to get something out, but it's stuck on the shirt behind, look out, hanger. You're going down. Like I'm screaming, I'm kicking, I throw the hanger. I don't like to wait to patiently remove the shirt and just nicely pull it out. I don't do that. I don't like to wait. But God has had to teach me in the messy middle the power of waiting, the power and the peace of waiting. What does waiting do? It strengthens you and it strengthens your heart when we have to wait on what the Lord's doing. But now you might be in here and you might be like, I've been waiting. I'm sick of waiting. Wait for how long, right? Everyone else is getting what they want. What about me? I've celebrated everyone else's wedding. Where's my husband? Where's my wife? I've celebrated everybody else's baby. Where's my baby? I've celebrated everybody else's house, everybody else's jobs, or maybe you haven't celebrated you know what I mean? Like there's two ways you can go with that. But you are like watching everybody else get what they want and get what you want, and you are frustrated in the waiting. Can I encourage you with something? Wait for the Lord. Wait for the Lord. Don't take matters into your own hands. One of the worst things you can do, and I know because I've done it many times, is to take matters into my own hands. It just leaves a mess for me to clean up, right? God will come through. God will come through. In a waiting season, we have that choice that we get to make of where we're going to align into. And what am I choosing to align to? Am I choosing to align to God's way? Or am I choosing to align to my way? Our alignment will determine the seeds that we sow. If you are out of alignment with God, you're sowing seed in areas you shouldn't even be in. You're sowing seed on land that's not yours. You're sowing seed in places that God's like, that's great, you're just wasting it. You're sowing good seed in bad soil. The key is to wait for the harvest, right? Don't be impatient in that messy middle. It's the working out season. It's the character development. It's the pruning. It's the waiting. Last week we had to talk about, I didn't appreciate it, inspecting our seed, right? Like, what is the seed that we're sowing? That was the part that just kind of got me a little bit. It's like, inspect your seed. What is it? And I'm like, I mean, mostly it's good. Like, for me, I'm good in the morning. Anybody else just hit your low point about 4 o'clock, right about the time you get home to your beautiful family, and you're like, hey guys, I am awesome in the morning. Like, Starbucks lady, you're getting the best of me. I am awesome, right? Well, but we have to inspect our seeds. We have to inspect. It might be a place where we don't really want to. We don't really want to make those changes. But godly seeds produce godly fruit. If we don't take time to inspect our seeds, then we don't know what we're sowing, and then we don't know what we're getting back. We don't know what we're reaping. And when we sow kindness, we reap kindness. Now, I do want to pause here for a minute, because a lot of times we think, I'm going to sow kindness into Derek. But then Derek's not kind. Derek is kind. You're a kind guy, usually. So one thing I love about Derek, I'm getting off track here, but this is funny. I always like to bring Derek my leftovers. Like, if I go out to lunch and I don't eat all my food, which is rare, but if I don't, then I'll bring it back, and Derek's like, I feel so seen. Like, thank you so much. He always appreciates that. But if I did that for Derek and I showed him kindness, and then he was really mean and ugly to me, I might think, man, I sowed kindness, but I didn't reap kindness from Derek. And God wrecked me with this. Because for me, I'm like, no, I sowed love. Those people should be nice to me. I was nice to them. And God helped me to see that I'm not sowing seeds into people. I'm sowing seeds in the Spirit. And so I may not reap kindness from Derek, but there's kindness coming to me. And so that's where we get disappointed quick, because I'm like, no, I was nice. I was loving. I gave that person everything. And you still sowed those seeds. Those seeds are there. They are in good soil, in the kingdom soil, in spiritual soil, and you're going to reap that back from God. I'd way rather reap a harvest that God brings than from people. This guards you from disappointment, because I can love people well, but they may not love me in return. Anybody ever loved someone that didn't love them back? It's happened. It's happened to us. You pastor a church long enough, you're going to love some people that decide they don't love you anymore. And I had to make a decision, but I sowed love, and offense and bitterness tried to get root in my heart. But then God said, hey, you did sow love, and you're going to reap love. It's not coming through people or through that person, but you're going to get love back because of the seeds that you've sown. You're not sowing into people, you're sowing into the kingdom. You are sowing spiritual seeds, and good, godly seeds produce a good, godly harvest. Natural seeds bring natural fruit. They die. Ever see fruit? When it dies, it stinks. Lila Jane, my youngest, her room stunk this week. And I was like, girl, what is in this room? She's 14, so God only knows what was in there, right? But it was these dead flowers that she had, and they smelled up the whole room. What? They're natural. They died. Natural things die. Spiritual things are eternal. That's where we want to sow that seed. We want to sow where we want to go, okay? We want to sow where we want to go. Good seeds, good fruit. Bad seeds, bad fruit, period. We have a choice in the seeds that we sow. No matter what people do to you, what your situation is, God will determine what fruit he brings. And the seeds that we sow, again, are determined by what we are aligned to, okay? So, obviously, we have a choice. And the beauty of our relationship with Jesus is that we have a choice that we can make every single day to choose our own way or to choose to go his way. So here's what I want to do today. I want to talk about how do we choose to align with God every day. I like a plan, okay? So if somebody's like, gives me an idea, I'm like, how do I do that? Like, how do I make that happen? I need you to give me some details about how I make that happen, and then I'll do it. Like, if I have a way, so I want to give you guys a way. We're going to talk through this a little bit. How do I choose to align to God every day? There's a few things that we can identify that are going to help us align to God every single day, okay? I got to skip through. I skipped some stuff. Okay, I got too chatty. Okay, so Lamentations 3, verse 23. Great is his faithfulness. His mercies begin afresh each morning. Who's thankful for that? That God's mercy is new every morning. This is a great verse. This was what we talked about on week 1 of this series. God's mercy is new every morning. I love it so much. I've seen this on posters, and nobody has posters anymore. I've seen this on vinyl. I've seen it on T-shirts. I've seen it on tattoos, all the things. Like, we love this verse. But what I always encourage people to do when you're reading the Bible is don't just read one verse. Like, we want to read above it. We want to read below it so that we're always reading in context. Okay? If somebody's like, no, this verse right here says this, say, okay, but what's it say before it? What does it say after it? If you read it, do that. Read your Bible. Read above it. Read below it. Read around it. Find out what's actually going on here. Don't just pull a verse out and create a life around one verse. That was just on the side, okay? I love reading the Bible. If you want to learn how to read your Bible, I would love to talk to you about it. Okay. Read above, read below. First of all, first sign we should be suspicious, it's in Lamentations. If you're about to get a tattoo from Lamentations, read above, read below. Pause and read, okay? Let's pop back. Verse 19. The thought of my suffering and homelessness is bitter beyond words. I will never forget this awful time as I grieve over my loss. Yet, I still dare to hope when I remember this. Verse 22 is where it gets good. The faithful love of the Lord never ends. His mercies never cease. Great is his faithfulness. His mercies begin afresh each morning. I say to myself, the Lord is my inheritance. Therefore, I will hope in him. That's good stuff. That's good stuff. So how do we choose to align to God every day? Number one, it's not about your circumstances. It's about God's faithfulness. Lamentations, the thought of my suffering and homelessness is bitter beyond words. The circumstances were not great. I will never forget this awful time as I grieve over my loss. Ever been there? In that space where it would be easier to align with my own way because of what's going on around me. It would be easier to align with what I see, but it's not what God says. But I love how Jeremiah gets himself to a place where he's like, but even still, I love it. Oh, whoa, hey. Yet, this is like one of those, this is it right here. That's the money part right there. Yet, I still dare to hope. I still dare to hope. No matter what's going on right now, no matter what's going on in front of you, can I encourage you that God's love and his mercy and his faithfulness never cease. They never end. Never, 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 ever, ever. They never end. They're always there. They are new every single day. So even while you may be sowing bad seed, can I tell you something that's so cool? Tomorrow, God can redeem it. Good seed, good soil, good fruit. Bad seed in good soil, given back to the Lord, he can redeem it. He can bring about, and you're like, but you said bad fruit. Yep, in your hand, it's bad. But if we give it to God, I've sown some bad seed, and God's revealed it to me, and I've had to say, God, I don't want to reap a harvest from this seed that I've sown. Forgive me. Help me. Whether you're homeless, bitter, or grieving your losses, we can choose to have hope. I love this part. My inheritance is in the Lord. He's my portion. He's everything. Number two, how do we choose to align with God every day? It's not about your feelings. It's about God's faithfulness. It's not about your feelings. The writer of Lamentations is the prophet Jeremiah. He was called the weeping prophet. How would you like that to be your nickname? The weeper. The guy that always weeps. He was called the weeping prophet. And we can see, based on just this little snippet, that the book, he's a little bit in his feels, right? He's a little bit like, I'm feeling a little overwhelmed. I'm feeling a little burdensome. If we pop back even more to verse 17, it says, peace has been stripped away, and I have forgotten what prosperity is. Wow. This is a lot. He's really struggling, but guess what? I've been there. Peace has been stripped away. Ever been there? You can't find it. You can't locate it. It's a space where it would be easier to walk away, easier to let your feelings take control of you. I want to give into offense and hurt. I want to give into anger and frustration. I want to let my feelings rule the day. I want to align myself with what I feel, but then I remember that how I feel does not change who God is. My feelings do not dictate the promises of God. They don't dictate the fruit from the seed that I've sown. When I'm in the messy middle and I want to quit and run, God's promises stay secure. They never cease. They never fail. Jeremiah says, I still dare to hope when I do what? When I remember God's faithfulness. Our hope is not found in a feeling, it's found in remembering who God is. We have to choose to remember. You got to go back to that place of God's faithfulness. You got to return to that place of God's faithfulness where he was good, where you knew him. And you might be here today and you're like, I don't know if I've ever had that place. Let today be that place. Let today be the day that changes it. You're in a place where you can meet God. You're in a place where people celebrate you. Where do you ever go where people are excited that you're there? Like, unless you have toddlers, no one cares. Like, you can go, nobody celebrates me and cheers for me when I walk into the grocery store. I'm lucky if I get a hello. I'm like, why are you standing there if you're not going to say hi? You know, like, nobody's excited anywhere. But you came here today, and we have been praying for you. We have been believing God for you. We have been excited for Sunday all the way since Monday. We are excited. Let today be the day that you remember God's faithfulness, the day that God showed up in your life. He drew you in here. He called you in. You might be like, I don't even know why I'm here. You're here because there's a God that loves you, and he stirred your heart to be in his house, and there is no better place to be. Let today be the day you remember God's faithfulness. Let it be today. Number 3, how do we choose to align with God every single day? This is a good one and a hard one. It's not about the short game. It's about God's faithfulness. It's not about the short game. You ever heard anybody say we got to play the long game? I don't like the long game. I have been guilty over the years of playing the short game, not thinking ahead. Pastor Matt would be waving his hanky if he were here. I am notoriously bad at making decisions based on what's easiest, cheapest, and fastest for right now. I mean, you ever go to a grocery store and you're in the checkout? Just right in the checkout and you remember you forgot something and you're like, I'll get it next time. That's what I do. I'm like, literally, I'll have to come back to the store where I'm at, but if the milk is so far away, you know, I'm like, I'll get it later. I don't know why I do that. I'm like, just go get the milk. But I live my life like I'm built to sprint. This is not a sprinter's build, okay? Life is not a sprint. It's a marathon. We've got to remember the seeds we're investing in them for the long haul. It would be easier to align myself and my natural instinct with what's quick, but God's timing is not our timing. We have to wait on the Lord. He is not interested. God is not interested in how fast you arrive at your destination. What he is interested in is who you are when you get there. The waiting season, the messy middle, the developing of who you are, your character. Seeds sown are playing the long game. Sowing seeds of faithfulness. Sowing seeds of love and kindness and joy and peace. Galatians 5, right? Sowing seeds of goodness and gentleness. Here's what I'm learning in my relationship with God. It's not about the fastest, the easiest, and the cheapest in the moment. It's about years. Let's go back. It's about days and weeks and months and years and decades of faithfulness. And now that I'm in a season of seeing some of the harvest from the seeds that we've sown, can I tell you it's worth it? It's worth waiting. The faithfulness in giving your tithe is worth it. The faithfulness in choosing to pray, the seeds you've sown in prayers, God never, ever forgets those. God sees every seed that's being sown. The seeds that you've sown in relationships, they're worth it. Even when you don't see the fruit, right now, I want to encourage you to stay aligned with God because he is faithful. He is faithful. Young people, single people, can I encourage you with something? It's worth the wait. It's worth the wait for the one that God has for you. You might be like, there's only one? Go with me, okay? God has someone for you. It's worth waiting. Marriage matters. Who you marry matters. Don't get impatient. Align yourself with God's way and play the long game. God's name is faithful. I love this. Understand, therefore, that the Lord your God is indeed God. He is the faithful God who keeps his covenant for 1,000 generations. God, it's not a character trait of God. It's not a personality. It's who he is. He is faithful. He can't not be faithful. Like, I can't not be 5'9". I'm 5'9". That's how tall I am. I can't not be that. That's who I am. That's the same way it is with God. He is faithful. He can't not be faithful. So when you're frustrated and when you're impatient, will you remember that God is faithful? It's who he is. And so I want to encourage you today with what Jeremiah said. Just dare to hope in him. Dare to hope as we align ourselves with his word, as we align ourselves with his goodness, as we align ourselves with his plans. His way is better.
Thank you so much for watching this week's message. Our vision at Mercy City is to connect people to the heart of God and to the house of God, and that includes you. We have some amazing next steps that we want to walk you through to discover all that God has for your life. Visit our website, mercycity.church, and click on Next Steps under the Connect dropdown. If you would like to receive prayer, please email us at pastors@mercycity.church. We love you and can't wait to see you in person next week.